On episode 204 of the Tennis Files podcast, you'll learn how to transform your mindset and play your best tennis with Jeff Greenwald. Hello. This is mehrban, and I'm back for another podcast episode. I hope you're doing really well and staying safe. I've been getting to play a lot more tennis lately, being back from vacation for a weekish now, and just practicing with some really good level players and playing some matches, so it feels great. But today we have an episode with Jeff Greenwald, who is an internationally recognized sports psychology consultant. He's a licensed psychotherapist, and he's the author of a best-selling tennis psychology book, The Best Tennis of Your Life, as well as Fearless Tennis. And so Jeff has been helping athletes and professionals through his personal coaching, seminars, books, and audio programs for the past couple of decades. Jeff is also a great player and was ranked number one in the world in the men's 35 age division. And he's won some great titles as well. He's a two-time ITF world champion and former ATP Tour player. And so with all that experience, I figured it would be great to have this episode feature Jeff. And so with this one, which we recorded a little while back, he is going to answer my questions as well as questions from the Tennis Files audience. So I think you'll really enjoy it, and I'll touch upon a ton of questions that I'm sure at least some of which you have had before or have right now. So without further ado, here is the episode with Jeff. Jeff, just first off, we were talking earlier today, and you mentioned that you have actually, you don't just teach, all this great information on the mental game, but you also, you're out there competing and everything. So talk to us a little bit about your recent tennis exploits.
Well, it is certainly interesting. Great to be with you, mehrban, and everybody. Yeah, that I can apply and try to apply what I teach and experience it still, right? Under pressure, in the heat. I just came back from Palm Springs, the National Wilson World Classic. I played in the 50s and 100-degree heat, some altitude, family watching, had some pressure and had to dig deep and bring a shovel with me and dig and use a lot of tools. I definitely used a lot of tools. I didn't lose a set to win the tournament, but I had 4-7-5 sets, and I had to find a way. And it's, we don't always go out and play our absolute best. Sometimes we have to find a way when we're at even 50%. I was probably at 50-60% the whole tournament, with the exception of the finals. And I hadn't played in a year and a half, a tournament. And I think a lot of players were in that boat, and probably resonates with folks who haven't played as much in tournaments, and then you go in and you have that experience. So we certainly can talk more about the pressure and the nerves and what to do about it.
Yeah, I'd love to actually unpack a few things there, because there are quite a few elements we can talk about. So first off, you had family and friends watching. That can cause a lot of pressure on players. I know that did for me as well, when I played juniors, college. So how do you deal with that?
Well, it really depends on the moment, on the situation. Is it fatigue? Is it a loss of intensity and focus? So I think the big challenge for a lot of players is figuring out what actually you need in the moment to adjust, because and that does take some time, but the more aware you are, the better. And so I'll give you one kind of example. It was a big moment in I think it was the quarterfinals. I was down 5-2, and I did change my game completely. I actually started serving and volleying and so forth. So I changed my tactic, but there was a point there where I started to pull out a lyric from Bruce Springsteen, which I had done years ago, to distract myself from thoughts and even some tension that I was feeling, which has worked really well in a pinch in the past. But my brain was like, yeah, really? Are you that in dire straits that you need to pull out the Bruce Springsteen lyric, right? It was sort of an interesting moment where that tool, I was like, yeah, that's not going to work right now. And I have a number of different tools that I'm able to you know to use depending on the moment. We can talk more about those, of course. The different things. In the finals, I probably used 10 different things. I was up 6-1, 5-0, and he came back to 5-all in the second set, actually, and I was able to win it 7-5. The first practical tip on that is from my book. I say momentum is with you if you think it is. So he's roaring back, playing well, 5-1, 5-2, 5-3, 5-5. And I said to myself, because I felt like he certainly had some momentum in a way, but I said to myself, only if you think he does. If he thinks he has momentum, if the people watching thinks he has momentum, but I don't think he does, then does he have momentum? Not really. Momentum is an event, but it only exists if you think it does. So the mind is very powerful if you can tap into some of these things. And I'll share in a little while another moment that I had at 6-1, 4-0 that I think would be pretty interesting for folks. So we can come back to that if you like.
Yeah, sure. That's fantastic, Jeff. And it's we already have a bunch of questions here, so let me try to scroll down here. Gordon has some nice comments about fearless tennis here. So Adrian asks, what do you think of players like Murray taking notes to the court? Would you advise it to junior players? What should we write on them?
Yeah. In fact, interestingly, the TV camera caught Murray's notes, and maybe perhaps Gordon or whoever is writing in on that is referencing that, where the camera came in on his journal on the bench, and it's and the number. Guess what the number one thing was?
Be
Have
present.
fun.
Oh,
Have
okay.
fun.
Yeah.
Have fun. Enjoy it. Right. It was interesting, um, and so what I teach players to do is go out on the court with two intentions before they play. Have two goals. Intentions are more things you really want to execute on, things that are really important to you. Beyond winning and losing, obviously you want to win, you don't want to lose. Da, da, da. We all know that, right? But the brain goes there, right? It's just the future and what's going to happen, what people are going to say, and all that. So the intentions are helpful, to kind of like a rudder in the water, if you will, a way to stabilize you, bring you back to these intentions. For example, uh, deep breathing between points. Tsitsipas was talking about recently his breathing, and Novak's, of course, did a great job, in his game to work on his breathing pattern. So you can have breathing as an intention. You can have you're really prioritizing your focus. That focus is going to be the thing that you do out there. And so you're focused on the ground and the ball and the strings, all these external cues to keep your attention. Or it could be a tactical intention. You want to get into the net. You want to first strike. You want to be consistent cross court. Take a backhand down the line every now and then, right? So you can have a mental intention and a tactical intention, or two mental, however you like. But the having notes, having a couple things. You don't want to have too many things, which is part of the problem a lot. Too much information, too many, you're trying to do at one time, you shoot yourself in the foot. So keep it simple, but keep them very targeted. It's part of your building process, your game. What do you want to go on the court and emphasize, and keep your attention on those intrinsic factors, and not so much the score and all that. So
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Jeff. And so, kind of a step-by-step question. Obviously, we can intersperse questions. At what point, when you find out, who you're playing, at what point do you start the mental preparation? Because I want to see, at what point do we start prepping, and then what should we do? And then, as we progress into the match and during the match, what we do as well. So when does the mental preparation begin for you?
So I in my CD years ago, I talked about that it really begins a few days before, and certainly the day before, where you're hydrating, obviously, and you're staying present. You're doing things all along that are getting you in the position to be in your best state, right? That could be massage and so forth, whatever the things your body needs and so forth. But outside of, the things you have control over, your diet and so forth, the morning you wake up, I think it's really important to get present, feel your feet on the ground and really just try to be present through the day, through your meal, and not rushing. Rushing is the kiss of death when you're playing tournaments. So you really want to time everything well. Agassi talked about that a lot. How important time was and controlling what you can't control. Everything was just, and that's just, there's enough sort of anxiety and so forth for players wanting to have a good result and so forth, that it's helpful to really take control of these things. So getting present, doing some stretching in the morning, some breathing, getting your nervous system sort of in a relaxed state and staying as present as you can. Do your routine, whether that's getting your blood going on the bike or some jump rope or whatever that is. And then I like to, 15 minutes, 20 minutes before a match, put on some headphones. I'll do some relaxed breathing. I'll do some visualizing, a couple minutes, picturing myself playing loose, aggressive, hitting my forehand, which of course I did at night a little bit too, going to sleep, picturing the shots that I want. And then really going in with the blinders on. When my eyes are focused, and for me, that's one of my intentions. When I'm really, really focused, because I tend to look around a little bit, I get distracted. I try to bring that in, and when I do that, and I'm successful with that, I play usually very, very well. Um, so I think we all have certain little triggers or things we can do that can really bring us into a good place. And sometimes we have to refocus and get back there. But yeah, so those are, it's a build up, and then certainly before the match, I think we leave too much on the table if we don't do some sort of breathing or visualization or some music. I like to listen to the same tracks each time, and Guns N' Roses I like, and for the match, it's just kind of a trigger, and you get associated with it's go time. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for that great summary.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the preparation that you mentioned, which was brilliant, is there a difference in how you suggest people prepare based on their personality types? Like, do you vary any of what you just mentioned, or do you add certain things or subtract based on the personality type of the person?
Yeah. So I mean, people who are introverted a little bit and like to be by themselves and get rejuvenated, get energized by being by themselves. To be too caught up in conversations and distracted, that's going to be it's going to feel like players are really pulled out of their comfort zone. So I think it's important for introverts too to really take this time for themselves to recharge and get ready. Um, I think some people who are more extroverted and get energized by people and can actually play better or be more focused with some distractions. Um, that having somebody to talk to can sometimes relieve the pressure. So certainly that on the highest level of the game, they have a team of people and there's conversation there, but you have to really manage your energy at tournaments, especially and before, because you can easily get pulled into all kinds of places mentally and emotionally. So I think knowing yourself in that regard, and what energizes you, what helps you sort of focus, quiet time, and so forth, is good. I like to be pretty pumped up actually when I play. So I have a high intensity level. I like a lot of arousal, actually adrenaline. I really like it, and so. But some people get really, really affected by that adrenaline, and they need more relaxation. I can listen to heavy metal maybe, or get really pumped, and it's I take that energy with me, and it doesn't sort of restrict me in any way usually.
Very cool, Jeff. And kind of a follow up question here on that, on adrenaline. Gordon asks, how does Jeff try and use adrenaline that competition induces?
Yeah. So, well, I think of adrenaline and energy, nerves. It is energy, right? And if you think of pipes like a clogged, if you're trying to get rid of the nerves and wish they weren't there, and getting negative about the fact that you have the adrenaline and you think that it's going to make you play worse, all of that sort of storyline can really get in your way. And so, I mean, nobody likes to be on a call a scale to 10, 1 to 10. Nobody wants to be before a match 7 to 10, 8 to 10. You certainly don't, it's not comfortable, right? But if you're at a 4 or 5, 6, even if you do happen to be at a 7 or 8, to learn to be okay with that and accept it and smile and know that, believe that it will gradually reduce. But the more we try to stop it, restrict, hold back, play safe, block it, we get trapped. And this is where a lot of players get trapped, because then they're scared to miss, and it's this vicious cycle. So when I feel the surge, when I feel all of that energy, and I do have I definitely feel the arousal. I'll channel it. I'll make sure that I'm channeling that, and using it. So I'm hitting through the ball. I'm letting myself hit through it, and I'm giving myself permission to miss too. I mean, part of it has to be right, and this is easier said than done, I know, but you have to be willing to miss long, miss in the net a few times, even if you to the willingness to let that adrenaline come through you, through the ball, and let it start flowing, as opposed to the restricting.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Appreciate that, Jeff. Gordon also has a question, which I may add on to it, but he asks, how does Jeff think he is playing now compared to his prime, making allowances for being ring rusty on competition, although you're not, you've been competing. And then, I can add to that as well, if there's any changes that you made on the mental game side, compared to years ago.
To how many years ago?
Oh, just compared to
Many years ago.
Many years ago, yeah.
So I'll just say that, and I hope this is inspiring to folks, that I really do believe everybody has their best tennis in them, and that, I mean, I'm 54, and I'm technically in the 55s this year. I can play, and I won the 40s at 52, um, and I have to say that I've been a bit surprised over the years physically that I've been able to move as well as I have. Um, but what I think has helped me move well and helped me stay relatively injury free, which is so important over time, is that I've been prioritizing being loose when I play, being loose, physically loose in my upper body. And that was probably the biggest epiphany I guess I had coming back from, when years ago, when I started playing men's open and seniors, I recognized that when we're looser and more engaged in the process, and truly, genuinely not obsessing over the outcome, or fixated on that you can play looser and more aggressively, and therefore hit deeper, harder, more consistent, and win more. And there's this sort of what I call the upward spiral, when you're willing and you have the courage to, and of course you need the game, the shots, to be able to execute a good extended forehand, where you can really release it. But I think we all hold back too much, and we protect against these errors, right? And we know this. So I would say that the answer to that would be, let's say, not including this last tournament, because I was half the player I've been for 2 decades. So it was sort of miraculous that I could find a way to win playing at that level. But up until then, I'd say that I've said I would beat myself in college, or even probably on the pro tour, in my early 50s still, even, because I'm just more willing to step in. And it's so important to me, and I hope for folks, that what matters so much is the how we do it. The what happens will be determined by the how willing we are to step in and release it and miss a few, and recognize that we only need 51% of the points roughly to win the match. So, which I did not know before. I wish I had when I was younger. If I had known that, I might have done a whole lot better, not thinking I had to win every single point. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, Jeff. The statistics are really amazing and eye-opening. So, how do we stay loose and being willing to go for it? Because a lot of times we'll start off loose and relax and everything, but then all of a sudden at a critical juncture, then boom, we just get tight, and then we want to play it safe, and then it's a even if you win the match, sometimes you have this like not a great feeling, like, oh, this person gave me the match almost. So, how do we stay aggressive and going for it?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I might have answered that a little more from an ivory tower before Palm Springs. This last one, in that
Mm.
I felt loose quite often, but I felt tighter down there, and it was humbling to feel that tension that you're talking about. And so I'd answer it in a couple of ways. One, whenever the outcome, whether consciously or unconsciously, becomes so important, and you might be telling yourself it's not as important, but deep down, I mean, I had my family there, and there were things my father I hadn't seen in a year, and he was very excited to watch and have me win and so forth. So, and he, there's a history as a junior player with him, so I certainly had my trigger. But uh and the degree to which you can genuinely prioritize being loose and focused and tactically executing your specific patterns, the things you want to do out there, you will be in a much better position to play looser throughout the match, as a whole, right? That sort of mastery process versus God, I hope I win, and what will people say if I win or lose, right? So if you genuinely can sort of um, go in with the passion to execute on those intentions, uh, you're in a much better place. And then when you get tight, if and when you get tight, um, the acceptance of it is very, very important. The typical response is, oh no. Even if you don't say that in your head, there's a genuine feeling, bad. This is bad. I don't want it now. And you feel like you probably can't make the ball in the court. You feel like you're probably going to miss. Um, and and that's disconcerting, where the confidence disappears because your arms feel tight and your feet may be getting tight, and or stationary. And so to think that you can crack a return of serve successfully kind of disappears a little bit there, like you said, right? When you get tight. So there's an acceptance of it instead of fighting. That's really important. Okay, like it is what it is. It's there. The thing that has helped probably the most in all areas, always mentally, is taking your focus and taking it off yourself and putting it onto something else, your target, your opponent's shoes, a leaf on the court, the tree outs, anything you can do externally, because what the instinct is to get consumed with the tension and feel it. You don't like it, wish it would go away. Okay, now we got to protect. The brain is saying protect, back off. God forbid you hit long, and hit. So you have to uh, shift your focus externally. It helps a whole lot, almost as if you're sort of toggling to a new channel instead of the tight protect channel. It's your mind is sort of neutral. If you can sort of practice this, get it to something external, and with the commitment and coming back to your intention of hitting through the ball, uh, that's really helpful. I have some other ideas. It's in my course, obviously, which folks can certainly go on my website and get if they ever want to. But Fearless Tennis course. But there's ways to train being loose as well. You can sort of train the feeling, get more accustomed to it, more familiar with it, and call it up. I'll give you one more example. Something I did before the finals, which actually really, really helped. I watched a 2-minute YouTube video of me playing in La Jolla, the hard courts, playing really well, 2-minute, in the shirt I was wearing. And I played loose there. I was aggressive, moving the ball around. And when I was in the finals here, I guess this was 2 years later, I pictured myself at times playing in that shirt, the feeling I had when I played that finals, and I was able to replicate that feeling actually quite well, and I think that really helped a lot in that match.
Yeah, beautiful stuff there. Thanks for that, Jeff. So we got we have some questions here, obviously. So Riyadh has one that I think you kind of touched upon. Let's see if you have anything else to add to it, Jeff. So Riyadh asks how to be loose when you are tense, and then loose physically or mentally. So, any thoughts on that?
So it's physically loose in your hand. So the loose is shoulder, hand. So there's an upper body where you're releasing, and there's a sort of flow and not restricting and tensing. We tend to contract when we hit the ball when we're tight, and it's sometimes it feels like a leap of faith to do it, but we have to loosen the grip a little bit. One way to do that, you can tense and release on the court. You can literally squeeze your grip really hard, really tight. Go to the back fence and release. Maybe do that 2 or 3 times to get the contrast between tense and loose, tensed and loose. And you do that, and that can sort of help you physically, because it's getting yourself to be loose mentally. When we tell ourselves to be loose or tell ourselves to relax, it's like the fox guarding the hen house. You don't want the fox guarding the hen house, but like and Rafter said this many years ago. He told himself to get loose, and he got tighter. He said, well, maybe next year I'll tell myself to get tight, and maybe I'll relax. When we tell ourselves to do something, it's sort of the command, right? And so it's more of a physical entry point of getting ourselves physically more aware and dialed into that feeling.
Excellent.
But then get your focus off yourself. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, Josh says, amazing tip about refocusing externally. Thank you. It's great stuff there. Gordon says, great answer on comparison of current standard and the past. Inspiring and, of course, hard to play during these times. He says there are no ITF veteran competitions in Great Britain now, so that's definitely a rough situation. So Gustavus says, how do you keep from playing down to your opponent's level of play? So that's a very common issue that occurs. So what do you think, Jeff?
I hear this a lot. In fact, a Tennis Magazine just interviewed me on the idea of playing somebody who you quote feel like you should beat. Right? I know everybody can relate to that, and I come back. That goes in the frame of playing the game in a different dimension or from a different perspective, mindset. Like, I'm not saying. I mean, winning feels a whole lot better than losing. Losing hurts a whole lot more than winning feels good. I think a lot of people would probably say that, or perhaps agree with that. And losing can hurt. And no question, I experienced that over the years. But when you realize that, in my view, we don't take our wins with us, like gold balls and so forth. I don't know. I just feel like it fades. The wins fade. Then there's the next one and the next and so forth. And not that it's not important or feels great during the time. It absolutely does. And I know there's egos and so forth, but I'm more of a fan of trying to play your highest level, trying to tap into your what you can do. Now that also means, of course, you need to exploit your opponent's weakness and find their backhand probably, or be patient and aggressive, combination. But that you play your game on your terms. You're in the driver's seat, and you want to hit forehand cross courts and down the line, pull the trigger down the line, do it. You want to, and how well can you focus that day? How loose can you be that day? Like, how present can you be? And if your bar is around those things you control, the things that will actually help you win, it's a different game. You're not out there 30-15, darn it, 40 love, and now instead of, you're not as hooked into the score and being traumatized by the score. the way you would, because you're really genuinely engaged and interested in other parts that will help you actually win. So at a certain point, it just makes a lot of sense to do it that way.
Yeah, certainly does. So awesome, Jeff. We have a good amount of questions here. So let's see. Jay, look, if you're internally focused and intense but loose, how do you show it externally? I'm often told I look uninterested and bored by others in tennis and other settings when I'm fully dialed in and excited.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it makes me think about a great question, by the way, but it makes me think of Sampras, and how his demeanor, for the most part, versus Agassi, makes me think about a little bit of maybe Roger, not quite, and Roger and Rafa, perhaps, in that there's differences in the, again, sort of introvert extrovert. I'd certainly put Sampras more introverted, Agassi more extroverted. Um, but we all have sort of our signature arousal levels, intensity levels. Temperaments are different, as you said, Mehrban, earlier. So it is important to find our own concoction of cues and focusing points, preparation that match what we need, and um, and to show your intensity, to show that you're pumped up. That's other people saying you should do this or you should do that, and I wouldn't listen to them if they tell you that you should do this or that. And um, and uh, and and sort of know for yourself that you are in a good place. You do feel dialed in, have your intensity, and maybe you're not a fist pumper. um, I know when I have used the, fist pump at the wrong time, it can actually make you more anxious. But doing it at the right time for you, if it's for you, it's just a natural thing. But yeah, I just wouldn't worry about what other people think you should do, and stick with the sort of emotional, balance, intensity, and so forth that feels good to you.
Thanks for that, Jeff. And actually, kind of a follow up question on what you mentioned about the fist pumping. I'm curious because I had a teammate in college where he was playing somebody and he did a ton of fist pumping and yelling like in the first couple games, and then he quickly got beat really bad, and I felt like he kind of expended all his energy. So I'm wondering, how do you manage your energy levels and the fist pumping and getting pumped up at the right times?
It's a great question, and I think it can be a slippery slope if you come out of the gates too hot, too emotionally high, and not even enough, because what goes up may come down. And relatedly, I'll share what I played in. I was in the finals of La Jolla, the men's 40 hard courts, a few years ago, and I remember coming out and playing the first game. It could have been one of the best, if not the best game I've ever played. Two aces, two first serves, first strike, forehand winners. He didn't win a point, and he didn't touch the ball other than two returns. And I was up 1-0 in a heartbeat, the bar was so high that it made life more difficult for me. And I just think that this all or nothing binary, um, place is can be tricky. So you better to build, let things build, let the fire build a little bit, build the point, let settle in. Um, there certainly is something to be said for players who can come out hot, and especially at the highest level of the game, right? But I think that staying more even keel, positive, even keel, present, with occasional celebration on a particularly good shot, that you hit. It's kind of a natural gesture sometimes, and it's nothing I would force, really. Um, but some players may feel too muted and too introverted, and they need a little bit of grunting. They need a little bit of extra demonstrative physical gestures. So it is something that can be cultivated, but that's with conversation and looking at your successes in matches, how you look, and then matches you didn't play so well, and is there anything physically there you're doing in terms of gestures like that? And interestingly, I'm working on a project in that regard, really looking at the profile of players and between points and things. Yeah, so that'll, I think, yield some interesting new data. But anyway, yeah, I think it's personal again. That's the thing with the mental aspect. It's uniquely personal, and awareness is super important. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, and that's why it's preferable to get a very experienced mental game expert like Jeff here to figure out what's going on with you and to help you. So let's see, we've got JM who says, I find a quick workout, 30 minutes on a rower or bike helps diffuse my pre-match energy and reduce anxiety. So that is a very cool to see.
Yes.
That's 30 minutes is pretty substantial too. Let's see. So Gary asks, what percentage of playing and I'm sure you get this all the time, Jeff, what percentage of playing tennis is mental in your opinion? I've heard people say it's even up to 80% or more. Does this mean that we should practice more on improving our mentality versus our strokes?
Yeah, I know. So some Jimmy Connor said 95%, and there's it's the mental aspect. You cannot avoid it. It's just sort of the frame, if you will, around your game. So without the mental aspect, as players know, you could take lessons every day and be really polished, but mentally you get anxious, you get negative, you get angry. And so the mental game is always important, but if you don't have the technical skills, if you pull up on your shots, if you have the wrong grip, or do variety of things technically, including in practice, and it's not just a anxiety issue, nerves, mindset stuff, like you don't have that stroke yet, it's going to be very hard to be confident, right, on the return of the first serve or second serve. You need the technical proficiency to a point, but if obviously you're playing much better in practice, which happens a lot for players, and matches, it's a distinct gap, then the mental aspect for you is even more important. And it's always important, but the strategy, the technical, and the mental are all sort of need to be integrated and thought about, I think, to get in a way that's together, not separate islands. When you're deciding to take a ball down the line, that's tactical and it's also mental. You're making that decision. If you're doubting that decision and you're second guessing it through that shot, you're going to pull up, you're going to peak, you're not going to commit to it, and you're going to squeeze the grip a little tighter on contact. So the mental aspect is always there, and it's really getting clear about what do you need to feel looser, to be more focused, to go into a match and be in a good headspace. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. So back to more questions here. So Gordon asks, is it better not to engage with opponents during tournament play when they try to psych you out? Sometimes a smart comment back to them can deflate opponents and turn the tables, ?
So I'm not a big advocate of, I think if you keep, pay attention to your side of the fence and do, and do the things you want to do and build your game and so forth. I really like to keep the blinders on, do your thing, play your game. It's hard enough, stick to your intentions and just try to improve, right? And of course, in that match, find a way to win, find a way, adjust, change, change tactic if you need to. But I've had people try with me on a few occasions to get me off my focus, and it's funny to me, I smile, but and certainly people, the classic is, hey, your forehand looks great. What did you do? What did you do with your forehand? It looks amazing. And then they start missing everything, right? Because they're too conscious. So, but yeah, I'm more about do your thing, play your game, get better.
Yeah, good stuff. Agree with that. Let's see. What else do we have? Bruce, do you ever congratulate or acknowledge an opponent's good or great shot? Please discuss.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I am not a big advocate of this either. If it's fun, doubles, singles, and it's just, it's fine to do. If I, for me, it pulls me out of my focus. I don't I look, I believe focus is very precious. I believe it's fragile, and we all lose focus in matches. And then we have to refocus. And sometimes you know, that's if refocusing is sometimes even more important, and doing it, you know, um sort of the right way and not too dramatically. But my point is that when we anything that pulls ourselves out of our bubble, out of our focus, out of the seal, I call it, seal. So but I will, if it's an amazing shot, and I will, occasionally do that. It has to, my bar's pretty high, so it has to be a pretty amazing shot. But I will certainly give that to an opponent if it's that remarkable. Is a good point. Um, but I don't think a lot of that is necessary. A few times, sure, um, but it could also, by the way, take them out of their focus, maybe, um, and maybe they don't like it. But and the other one is sorry, saying sorry a lot to your partner, which happens too. Sorry,
Mm.
sorry, and if I would just throw out, if you say sorry to your partner all the time, how do they feel then? They can't make a mistake. Does it not allow them to make mistakes? And does it send the message that mistakes are something to be avoided? So that sorry thing too can become a little bit over the top for some people. But yeah, those are just a couple thoughts on that.
Thanks, Jeff. And so, follow up is, I mean, what is the proper way to react or communicate to your opponent? If, say, there's a sitting forehand that, you feel like maybe you should have made and you missed it, or it was an important point. So, what's instead of saying sorry, what's the proper way to respond?
Well, I think I would rather. I mean, it'd be nice if the partner actually said no worries,
Hmm.
instead of you having to be saying sorry all the time. It'd be kind of nice if the partner, what you see a lot is immediately at the higher levels, they tap the racket. It's all good. No worries. Here we go. So the partner is the one to actually kind of deflate or defuse that moment. And so you don't have to feel guilty about it or anything. So.
Hmm. Yeah, that's definitely preferable. So let's see here. Interesting one. So Richard asks, bottom line, what do you believe players should get the most joy out of? The grace and beauty and the dance of playing at a high form level, or winning?
The dancing, the dancing. And um, I think that's what I think that's what will last in a way. I mean, when I think about, I mean, certainly there are matches that I think back to, not so much, but occasionally, where I did something in that match and that could have helped me win that one. It's Yeah, I don't do that a lot. I think when you have a balanced life, you don't tend to maybe go back and obsess over certain losses. But I know when I played full time, losing was incredibly painful. And I know everybody has a different relationship to winning and losing, right? Everybody's a little different in that regard. I respect that. Um, I've um, and so I guess I'm sitting here saying, yeah, I've won, I don't know, 15 nationals and 2 world championships, and but I feel like I could have done better on the pro tour at the time had I had some of these tools. No question about it. I don't know how high, but I would have done a lot better. And being able to teach this now, because I've had to struggle myself, that's gratifying. I get to speak to folks like you and share some ideas that might be incredibly useful and help you enjoy the game and win more too. And so I guess my answer to that is I'd go for grace and I guess the caveat is I think the grace will lead to more winning anyway. So, but I go for grace over the gold ball that gets dusty. And but if you stepped in and you had your level and you felt good and you were loose and you played pretty well under pressure and you managed it and took some great deep breaths, came back, got it done, or put up a great fight and it was a great match. That's it's hard to get much better than that.
Yeah, 100%, Jeff. Just curious, when you have undergone a period, as I assume you probably have at some point, where you go on a losing streak and you maybe do lose a little bit of that joy that Richard talked about. What do you do to get yourself back on track and motivated and happy to play again?
Yeah, what people call slumps, right? And that's easy to get caught in that rabbit hole. I think it's really important to use that as a opportunity to reflect on what the mindset has been to that point, what has led to those losses, and is that an opportunity to actually learn more and maybe some reflecting you wouldn't have done had you won half those matches because you're doing pretty well. You won 5, you lost 5, whatever, but you went through a really hard period. And most successful athletes have gone through some really difficult times, whether on the court or off the court. The stats are incredible on that. So we learn more through hard times. We get stronger. We can find a renewed spirit. And so I would say, can we get back to being curious? Curious about a few things that you want to really prioritize. Getting back to how free are you on the court when you play? How focused are you? Do you know if you're focused or not? I had a question just the other day. I love this question of a junior player said, Jeff, how do you stay present in matches? That was the first question. And I answered it. I said, well, 80% of the time you should be not really thinking about anything, but just focused externally and using the court and your strings and not really, and 20% of the time tactically adjusting, maybe reassessing, maybe reviewing a shot to do it better the next time. Maybe it's a little cue, technically, even maybe something simple. But if you're out of the tactical 20% or adjustment, and if 80% of the time you should really be kind of a neutral mind, not thinking, that you're then anytime you're thinking about your brain is that you're actually in your head, it's probably not productive. So I got a little off track, I think, but where were we on the what was the question again?
Oh, no worries. It was just basically trying to find your joy again.
Find the joy. And so getting curious about, those parts that will lead to better success, right? So being more aware, tuning into your tension level, how loose are you, in fact? I talk again about the 1 to 10 and just playing around with these dials. I have focus, loose, and intensity, and those are my 3 dials. And you want to get better at tuning those dials into the right frequency, right? And if you don't like dials, which I like because it's not all or nothing, you're focused or you're not, or you're loose or you're tight, you're somewhere in between, right? You might be playing I played my whole career at a 6 tension, on the loose dial. 3, 4 is really loose. Roger, maybe on his good day, 3. Rafa's at a 5, maybe 6, I say. But we all have our tension. So tuning into these things, these dials, and being able to change the channel if you're on that outcome channel, and what are people thinking about me, changing that channel and getting better at that. And that starts to be something you control and adds, I think, joy and creates more of a project. Tennis becomes more of a fun project than a measure of your self-worth and status and your own ego, right? So that's the battle that we fight and hopefully win ultimately.
Yeah, those latter 3 are very dangerous there. Don't want to have those associations.
Mm-hmm.
So for sure. So Steve asks, what would be the most important factor to be able to play in matches as well as I play in practice?
I would say walk in the door through focus. Walk into the and if you walk through with that narrow focus, narrow, soft focus on the relevant things, ground, strings, target, etc. And you are loose. Those two, again, the dials, the focus, loose, intensity dials are, to me, when you're hitting the tennis ball, if you can be focused, loose, and intense in matches, you're going to have a good day. That's how I came up with the 3, as opposed to 10, 12 different qualities, enthusiastic and, and just having fun or confidence. You get confident when you have the ability to drop a little tension. You become more confident when you're focused on what somebody might be thinking about you when you're playing, and you refocus back on the ball and your tactic. You get more confident when you realize you're getting a little flat-footed, you weren't moving as well, and you jump around and you get your intensity up, which will actually increase your focus too. When you get better at these adjustments, and your confidence will rise, right? Because you have control over yourself. You're an instrument. You're controlling your instrument, and so focus the 3 dials, but focus is the doorway in, and being loose ultimately when you hit the tennis ball. If you know where you're hitting that ball and you're decisive, I think you're gonna play very well.
Yeah, 100%, Jeff. Great stuff there. Jerry says, I guess staying relaxed is key. I always hear have fun, which keeps you relaxed. It's good.
Yes.
Good comment there. JM says, as soon as you acknowledge a bad or good shot, you've taken your head out of the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Sure.
And to add to that, mehrban, and the enjoyment, it's so general, right? But if you truly are enjoying it and look forward to the competition, it goes a long way to helping you be looser in matches. And that's the bit, we get tighter because we want an outcome that's not determined, it's uncertain. So the enjoyment factor is huge, no question.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks, Jeff. And we do have a hard stop, everybody, at 4:30. So a couple more questions here. Let's see. So Riyadh, very good one. How to be competitive when you just want to have fun? I love tennis and I play for fun, but most of the people that I play with turn it into competition, and I really don't like this. Interesting. Kind of a battle there.
Yeah. I know this comes up, and so it's, obviously there's the obvious question is, are there other folks that you could potentially play with and you like, who take it a little bit more casually, and that's something you probably already have thought about and don't have access to that perhaps. But I guess, um, I come back to, it's sort of like setting boundaries, your own boundaries on the court mentally for yourself. If you enjoy playing, can you enjoy inherently the returning and serving and volleying and working on a couple things, and trying to play at your highest level, enjoying that, and I don't know exactly what, if these folks are like, trying to hit you with the ball, or they're getting in your face or what, but obviously that'd be over the top. So but I think everybody gets to do what they they're responsible for themselves, and we can't really control anybody else, so we can just double down on what we do, and what we want to do.
That's right, 100% there. Let's see what else we have. Jerry says, Riyadh, I agree, and I have the same issue with friends I play with. It always has to turn into a match. Sounds like they're reasonably competitive. Let's see. Christopher Polak, I really like the 3 dials. They're my focus during my next match, so that's fantastic. You're already getting great info here to apply. Riyadh says, thanks. So, Jeff, after somebody listens to this great session and all the great information you've given to us, what do you suggest in terms of next steps for them to take to put it into practice?
So I'm well aware that having this conversation, uh, I like to think that I have some really specific stuff that can make a difference for you. My hope is, but I'm well aware that we all have our history, our experiences, winning and losing in the past, and those matches can come up in your mind, and you can lose confidence quickly at times, and the nerves just creep in, really, really creep in, or they hit you like a ton of bricks. Either way, um, our nervous systems react, and some matches mean more than others. So I guess I would just say, um, work at it like you would your forehand and serve, and really take some of these tips and apply them, and journal a little bit about them. How did that work? Um, so you can start to build your own personal performance plan, right? Your mental performance plan. And the course I have is a two-part course, Fearless Tennis, on my website, and that um, goes through these dials, and it teaches, it as worksheets, and it's very organized, right? Video, audio, worksheet, action item for the week. So 2 hours of that, step by step by step, right? Focus, loose, and intensity. So I think training that would be helpful. My book, a lot of people have said reading just a few different chapters, picking up the book and reading a chapter that they felt they needed that day was really, really helpful to them. That's another way to go. Um, and But just be curious, apply some of these things, and and do them, and see how they work. Smile when you feel tight, accept the tension a little bit rather than fighting it. The last thing I'll say, when I was up 6-1, 4-0 in the finals of the national 50s 2 weeks ago, I had a voice that came in and it said, "Jeff, you're playing too well, you can't keep this up." And the voice was from, I hadn't heard that kind of like nasty voice since juniors, or a long, long time ago. I was like, wow, you know, okay. I'm like, no, I got this. And it was like, no, 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 you don't.
Wow.
It was sort of like really pesky. And I was like, okay, we can do this. We can do this. And it just quieted. It was really interesting, just saying, we got this. I brought him onto my team. So that pesky voice, if you have a negative critic, we all sort of do various times, bring it on your team. We got this. You have your intentions, and let that adrenaline come through you, and keep focusing. Those are my parting words on that. It's work at it. It does take practice and time, so it becomes a little more familiar, a little more accessible when you're actually playing the match.
Wonderful stuff, Jeff. And yeah, as you mentioned, you've got some great books, The Best Tennis of Your Life and Fearless Tennis, and, some great programs as well. So, Jeff, where can everybody go to check out what you have in store to help them with their mental game and reaching the next level?
I think the first thing would be to go to my website, fearlesstennis.com. And if you just put in your email, you're going to get back a free PDF of the mastery mindset that I've been talking about, and the outcome mindset that we get so absorbed in winning and losing, and so that you're going to get that, and that's a start, and you'll get a few follow-up emails as well, helping you through the beginning part of this, so you can kind of become part of my community. It's free, no charge. And then if you want to do more ever, you can reach me through the website, fearlesstennis.com. So yeah.
All right. I really hope you enjoyed my interview with Jeff Greenwald. I really enjoyed recording this one. And I just hope that you can apply some of the information that you listened to today to your game so that you can play your best tennis through these mental game tactics. And if you enjoyed this episode, and if you enjoy the Tennis Files podcast, I would really appreciate it if you would leave a review for the show. And you can do that on Apple Podcasts or the podcast app of your choice that you use to listen to the show. And I'd like to leave you with a quote, as I often do at the end of the show. And this one is from Jim Rohn. And Jim said, "Success is something you attract by the person you become." Love that quote from Jim. And with that, I just hope that you keep playing tennis and practicing and trying to improve a little bit each day. As we all know, that adds up to huge gains over time. And, it may not seem like you're improving, but after a while or at a certain point, breakthroughs occur. And so you just have to keep improving if you want to enjoy the game and reach your potential. That's it for me this week, and I look forward to producing many, many more episodes for you, knock on wood, and I just wish you the best, and we'll see you next week. This is mehrban Iranshad signing out.